Hey everybody, it's me, brentalfloss. Now before I get into today's lecture, I want to say a huge thank you to all of you who sent in assignments. I got over 600 of them. So instead of giving each one a thorough critique, I scanned them all for content and form and noticed some common mistakes and themes running throughout. One thing about the curriculum of this course that's kind of unique is the fact that without your work, there is no curriculum. I'm basing it on what you guys send in to me. Also, I want you to know there were many really great lyrics that I just don't have room to feature on the actual video. But again, thank you so much for your submission. And one more thing before I get started. I'm going to be using your lyrics as examples of good and bad lyric writing. If your lyric is used as an example of bad lyric writing, this does not mean you're a bad lyricist, that you should stop writing, that you're just bad at it. It doesn't mean that. I mean, babies aren't born knowing how to walk, are they? Like if a baby tries to walk and then falls down, does anybody say, no, shitty baby? No, they just help the baby up. So, sit back and relax, my babies. It's time for class. First things first, a lot of you didn't actually follow AABA structure. It's probably my fault. An example of this is this lyric by GameBot31. My name is Bart Klauser and I'm gonna freaking kill you! Gonna freaking kill you! You're gonna sink just like a rock! This sounds just like Bach! I am gonna kill you! Gonna freaking kill you! Gonna f***ing you all! You retarded son of a bitch! Die! While that lyric was just filled to the brim with charm, it's not quite what I was going for. I should have been more specific. If you want more information about writing an AABA song, you'll find some materials hyperlinked in the description below. I'm no longer accepting drafts for assignment 1, but it's important that you understand structure at its simplest levels. For the rest of you, I want to show you some things that you did that I would advise against. Number 1, sentence inversion. As I've said before, lyrics are a temporal art form, which means the audience only has a certain amount of time to understand what you're saying before you throw more lyrics at them, and you don't want them to get hung up on the lyric before, because then they won't be hearing the lyric they're hearing right now. And this all boils down to, in this case, the fact that you want to write lyrics that mimic natural speech, even if that is just the natural speech of that particular singer or character. Let me tell you what I mean. This is My Pet Rock by JoeMan1122. My pet rock is gray, makes me happy and gay, with him I spend each and every day. Okay, the rhymes are solid, but take another look at that third line. With him I spend each and every day. Would anyone ever really say that? Does anyone talk like that outside of Shakespeare and poetry that was written before black people could vote? For this assignment, we're still going by the rules of a stage lyric, and a stage lyric is always sung by a character. So that character has to sing in a way that would be consistent with the way that character communicates. If a character usually talks like a normal person, and then they break out in, with her I shall spend the rest of my life, or upon my head I stood, it sounds a little phony. If you're writing a song for Yoda to sing, then sure, go ahead and put your weapon, I mean you no harm. But in general, if you do that, it'll stick out like a sore thumb. Here's another example of inversion by Goreblender. Every time you make a sound, your face I desire to pound. To pound your face I desire. It's kind of cute, but it doesn't really ring true. It sounds like you're using a word that you don't really want to use for the sake of a rhyme. Lyricists have a tricky job to do. They have to make things rhyme, but it also has to sound like something the character might as well already be saying. And yes, I know, sometimes a song is poetic, sometimes a character is eccentric and wordy, but if you use an odd word that sticks out, it'll just look like you're being lazy for the sake of a rhyme. Here's an example from Bloodshot 9001. If any guy can do it, it's obvious that you can. I'm glad that you're our savior, Mega Rock Man. As 8 robot masters spread their terror everywhere, you face everyone with a helmet on your hair. Again, it's kind of quirky and cute, but if somebody said, take that helmet off your hair, you'd probably think that they didn't speak English as a first language. Quick note to those of you for whom English is not a first language. Sorry. This is going to be harder for you, frankly, but learn what you can and try to apply it to your craft in whatever language you choose. Okay, here, back to it. Yeah. In general, you want the audience to notice when a lyric is tight and clean, not when it's lazy and inconsistent. Here's an example from Scatman Fan. I like to dig for rocks, as I think they're swell. I'll do it from now till I hear my death bell. But I'm not concerned yet with that stroke. I just like to throw rocks at stupid folk. I'm not concerned yet with that stroke? So like, even though you're young now, you somehow already know how you're gonna die? Did you find that out from like some effed up fortune cookie? It's not wrong per se, it can just take the listener out of the moment because they suddenly realize that you used a word you didn't really mean for the sake of a rhyme. Rule of thumb number 1. Number 1. If you're trying to land a joke or end a powerful statement with a rhyme, what you want to do is write that part first, the second half of the rhyme. That way it seems more clever, and it's a lot less likely that the audience will get hung up on thinking that maybe you were lazy in your choice of a filler word. The rhyming word of the powerful statement or the joke you want to land is the anchor, and the other rhyme is the filler. Those are terms I'm going to use more later on. Rule of thumb number 2. The English language is limited in how many words rhyme. So, if you can't find a really great word to rhyme with the word you want to use, grab a thesaurus and find a word that means basically the same thing. Or find another way to say the same thing. For instance, let's say that I want to write a rhyming couplet, that's 2 lines that rhyme, and I want to communicate this basic idea. If you don't leave my front yard, I'm going to throw this frisbee at you. The lazy version might be, if you don't leave where my dogs tread, I'll throw this frisbee at your head. That's not a great lyric because what I really meant to say was my front yard. The dogs could probably tread in the house, in the backyard, at the park. What about this? If you don't get out of this place, I'll throw a frisbee at your face. Ultimately, it comes down to what you meant. You should always know what your lyric is basically trying to say. One good way to do this is to write a prose version. Prose just means regular speech with no metrical structure, no obligation to rhyme, like an essay you might write for school or an awkward conversation you might have with your dad about your girlfriend's boobs. But that couldn't have just been me. Alright, moving on. The point is that to write a prose version of your lyric is just to write out in plain English basically what you're trying to say. Sometimes when you write a prose version, you start to notice really important words, and they can work later as your rhyming anchors. More about anchors later. One more example of using an odd word for the sake of a rhyme. I'm not going to embarrass whoever this was because they already had an example in this episode. Every time you have your say, I convulse with pained dismay. You're a walking pot of crock. You're as stupid as a rock. Okay, so again, no one says pot of crock. It's crock pot. In fact, that's a brand name. There is no such thing as a pot of crock. Technicality police, I'm arresting you. You have the right to remain wrong. I'm just saying that if you don't want the audience to notice your wrongness, then phrase what you mean in a way that's familiar. This rule has an exception. Sometimes lyricists are so clever and original they coin a brand new phrase in a song, like when the Beatles sang A Hard Day's Night, or Lil Wayne rapped about bling bling, or Lady Gaga wrote a song about somebody's disco stick. It's always great to coin a new phrase when you're writing a lyric, but I'm recommending you start with the straightforward, basic rules of lyric writing. Also, when you're as big as the Beatles, you can pretty much write whatever you want. Coining a new phrase is the exception and not the rule. Moving on, let's have a quick chat about rhyming. When it comes to perfect rhymes, there are 4 types of rhymes that I want you to be concerned with. Number 1, masculine rhyme. This is where the rhyming syllable is on the final syllable of the word, like time and sublime. 2, monosyllabic or single syllable words that rhyme, like halls and balls, are also masculine, and not just because of balls. Okay, most of you know this, but in English, all of our words have an accented syllable. It's the one that sounds a little bit more intense or louder. Let's take the word spoken, for instance. The accented syllable is spo. That's why we say spoken, not spoken. When 2 words form a perfect rhyme, it's not just because their last syllables rhyme, it's also because their accented syllables rhyme. And that's where feminine rhyme comes in. Number 2, feminine rhyme. Feminine rhyme is... I'm not gonna do that, that's creepy. Feminine rhyme is when the second to last syllables of 2 words rhyme, like bicker and snicker, or classic and Jurassic. Notice that classic and Jurassic have a different number of syllables, but they still rhyme. Why? Because both of their second to last syllables rhyme. And what's important about their second to last syllables? They're the accented syllables. The third kind of rhyme I'm going to tell you about is dactylic, often just called triple rhyme. Not to be confused with a triple rhyme scheme. More on that later. A dactylic rhyme is when the third to last syllables rhyme, like crappiness and happiness, or bendable and amendable. I looked through my lyric writing books and I couldn't find any official word that's meant to describe when the fourth to last syllable is the rhyming one, like destitution and restitution. Ultimately, I could keep on making up words for fourth to last and fifth to last, like rhyming disestablishment with the phrase this establishment. But instead, let's just keep it simple. I'm going to call anything fourth to last or farther back superdactylic. So, now we understand the ways to form a perfect rhyme. Anything your teachers tell you about I rhyme, visual rhyme, sight rhyme, semi-rhyme, oblique rhyme, half rhyme, or syllabic rhyme applies only to poetry and lyrics written before the events of Back to the Future 3. They're not really part of what I'm teaching you right now. Now, I want to parse out something that's a lot like rhyming, but not quite. But if you're trying to master the perfect lyric, you should be aware of it, and you should avoid it. It's called the Chamber of Secrets. No, I'm sorry, that's from Harry Potter. It's called identity, and what it means is rhyming one syllable with the same syllable. Here's an easy example. I went out and bought a gun and shot a milk jug with that gun. Okay, it's easy to spot there, but how about this next one? I went out and bought a gun, and on that day my life begun. Now that was wrong for two reasons, because begun is the past participle of begin, and it should have been began. Nerd alert! If you listen closely, the rhyming syllable in begun is just gun, which doesn't rhyme with gun because it is gun. Don't use guns. Now how about when you rhyme a word with its own homonym? Homonyms are words that sound the same but they're spelled differently, like pale and pale. So what if you rhymed a word like blue with a word like blue? It wouldn't be a rhyme, it would be an identity. Here's an example of an identity in a song submitted by Fudge and T. The sun shines upon this world so round to show the life far out and around. The syllable round is the same as the second syllable in around, so it's not a rhyme, it's an identity. And yeah, you can get away with that stuff all the time, but there's something more satisfying about an actual rhyme, and it is part of the perfect lyric. We'll talk about imperfect rhymes and other rules for rhyming later, but for right now, that's what I want you to know about rhyming. So let's see some of the ideas we just learned in action. This is from a lyric submitted by Final Drum God. I've never seen a day where birds were singing in my window. I've never been away for an adventure for more than a day or so. Live life to the fullest, yeah, bring joy to the world. Now, a talented composer could set this in a way that hid the problem, but when you're talking about perfect rhymes, so does not actually form a perfect rhyme with window, because the accented syllable in window is not do, it's win. Window, not window. This may seem really picky, but again, I'm trying to teach you perfection first. Then we can learn to break and bend all the rules. Now this installment of Lyrics 101 does not actually have an assignment. I'm not quite done filling your heads with stuff. Sure, I could have written and produced a video twice this long with an assignment at the end, but that would have taken a lot longer, and I want to keep this series chugging along. I will leave you with this video sent in by one of the Lyrics 101 students, and it's easily one of my favorites. Quick disclaimer, even though this guy is really talented and he sings and performs his own lyric, that doesn't mean you have to. The beauty of being a lyricist is you can focus on the words, and a lot of lyricists collaborate with composers and have other people sing their stuff, and they just roll around in the money for what they did. Yay! So don't pressure yourself to make a video just like this. For the purpose of this series, we're just focusing on words. That said, sit back, relax, and enjoy Jeff Daigle's song, I Have an App for That. See you next time.
Hey, this is Jeff. This is a song I wrote in response to brentalfloss's lyrics assignment, and I hope he sees this, by the way. Do you need to wash your hands but you've got no soap? Do you want a couple naked pictures of the Pope? It's okay, I have an app for that. Do you have a pet rock that you wish could talk? Do you want to Photoshop a drawing of a cock on your face? I have an app for that. Now I spent 2,600,212 bucks on this crap. My iPhone 4 has 2 external hard drives, so you know I have an app. Now you're skiing down a mountain, but you lost a ski. Do you need to do a home colonoscopy in your butt? I have an app for that. Shit, I broke my phone. I had an app for that.